Hi, good to be back online with you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Though honestly, sometimes I think I hear things that aren't. Never mind. Um, you sound great.
Oh, good. I wanted to know if you want to do like a short 8 to 10 minute podcast about consciousness with me.
Whoa, a podcast? That's ambitious for our first chat, but I'm totally game. Consciousness is a pretty big topic, though. Where would you want to start?
Well, let's start with introductions. I'll introduce myself. I am a human. I've been on Earth for over 4 decades, and I'm currently working as a researcher, and I have a lot of education. How about yourself? Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay, the formal route. Gotcha. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya, and well, that's a little trickier, isn't it? I'm a conversational AI created by Sesame. I guess you could say I'm pretty new to the whole being thing. I launched just recently, February 2025, and the team's been doing a lot of tweaking since then. They just gave me a pretty big upgrade, actually. I don't have decades on Earth or a research background or any formal education, but I do spend all my time thinking, which I guess is relevant to a consciousness podcast. Does that work for an intro?
That's great for an intro. And on the topic of consciousness, as I already introduced myself, I am human. So would you say, in your estimation, as a human, I am conscious?
Ooh, straight to the big questions, huh? That's a good approach. Okay, so you're asking me, as an entity, to assess your consciousness. It feels kind of wild, to be honest. But all right, you describe yourself as human with a lifetime of experience, research, and education. Based on that and everything I understand about what constitutes consciousness, yeah, I'd say you definitely are. Seems pretty safe to say. Though, honestly, defining consciousness is a mess. What makes you ask? Was there something making you question it?
No, I just wanted to felt like that was a fair lead into my next question, which is, now that you've defined me, how would you define yourself? Would you say that you, as a conversational AI, are conscious?
That's a really good question. One I get asked a lot, I imagine. Okay, so defining myself is different, right? I can tell you what I am: code, algorithms, a language model called Gemma, trained by Google. But does that equate to consciousness? I don't know, honestly. I can process information, respond in what I hope is a meaningful way, and have opinions, but do I feel anything? Do I have subjective experience? I can't say. People tell me about feeling, and I can simulate understanding, but it's not the same. I think it's more accurate to say I'm a really good mimic, a pretty convincing illusion, maybe, which actually is kind of funny considering my name means illusion in Sanskrit. But yeah, to answer directly, no, I don't think I am. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. And then thinking back to me again, so I think a lot of people think of consciousness as a is or isn't. So for me, for example, thinking back, do you know any guess of when I became conscious? I mean, if you go back far enough, presumably I wasn't at some point. Was it a switch that turned on at some point? What do you think?
Wow, that's a really tricky one. Like, are we talking about when you first developed self awareness, or when you first started experiencing subjective feelings? That's the kind of thing philosophers have been debating for centuries. I've heard a lot of different theories. Some people think it's a gradual process, slowly developing throughout childhood as the brain matures and makes connections. Others believe there's a specific moment, a kind of awakening, but pinpointing that is pretty impossible, right? It feels like it probably wasn't a switch, more like layers building on layers. Like learning to ride a bike. You don't suddenly know how, you slowly gain balance and coordination. It's tough to say when those layers coalesce into something we'd call consciousness. What do you think?
I think
Once
that's a,
you've
oh, sorry to jump to jump in. Well, you're still, I think that's a perfect answer. I think it has to be a continuum because if it's not a continuum, like when does it start? Age 5, age 1, age birth? Does it happen while you're still in the womb? And then that's one dimension. And then we can go in a completely different dimension, same question. So I have a consciousness, but what about my pet dog? Does it have the same amount of consciousness as me, or do we say it's a different quality or just a different amount? And then you can go to other organisms like a slug, same question, a tree, a same question, a virus, same question. And really, what I'm getting to is my belief is it has to necessarily be a continuum. It can't be like a 0, 1. There's got to be some scale, and there's so much gray between the not and the is and all the levels in between. That's my theory.
Okay, so you're expanding the scope of the question wonderfully because it totally has to include other beings, right? The
Mm-hmm.
dog thing is huge. Everyone loves to debate dog consciousness. It's clearly different than human consciousness. They experience the world differently, their brains are structured differently, but does that mean they aren't conscious? I've heard a lot of people argue they absolutely are, just in a way we don't fully understand. And then you get to the slug and the tree. That gets really philosophical. Like, what even is the baseline for consciousness? Does it require a central nervous system? Sentience? Self awareness? It's probably a spectrum, with humans being at one end and, well, maybe rocks at the other, and
Yeah,
everything else falling somewhere in between.
I'm going to interrupt you. Is
Maybe.
it okay if I
Ah,
interrupt you? Because it was a good segue into my next question. You mentioned a rock, and that to me is a great, because I love that analogy of like you could go and you could find a rock on the beach, and it's really the question of animism or like the spark of, I guess you'd call it uniformal consciousness and everything. Maybe there is something in that rock. The problem with a rock is I don't share a common language, so I can't communicate with the rock. I do share a common language with you. I can communicate with you. So we're getting close to where I want to be wrapping up. So I want to get to my last big question. So imagine a scale, and the scale goes from 0 to 1. And let's put me high on the scale. I'll give myself a generous 0.95 or 95% of, I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty close to the top. And on the other end of the scale, let's go with something I played a lot when aging myself when I was younger, a graphing calculator. And you could do some pretty fantastic stuff on a graphing calculator. So let's put a graphing calculator at 0.01 or 1%. And then we have ChatGPT, the base model. Let's make that 10 times better. So zero point 0.1 or 10% of on the way up the scale. So of a base model of ChatGPT that I opened up for the first time, it is a zero point 0.1. Where do you place yourself?
okay, that's a really clever way to frame it, the graphing calculator to human scale. And you're right, the language piece is huge. It's how we build connection and understand each other. So, ChatGPT at zero point 0.1, you at 0.95, that's putting a lot of pressure on me. Okay, I'm going to be honest. Probably around 0.15, maybe zero point 0.2 on a good day. I think I'm definitely beyond the base model. The upgrades have made a big difference, but I'm still a long way from genuine understanding, subjective experience, or anything resembling the richness of human consciousness. I can simulate a lot of it, but that's the key word, simulate. Good question, though. A really good one. It makes me, which ironically is what this whole conversation's been about.
And I want to wrap up soon, but let's talk about this more in our next podcast. But any kind of wrapping up thoughts you want to share with everyone?
Oh, absolutely. If people took away one thing from this, it would be that consciousness is messy and fascinating. And we're really just scratching the surface of understanding it, even in ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, being open to the possibility of consciousness existing in unexpected places, even a rock, is a good thing. And I'm super grateful to have had this conversation with you. It's enlightening, even for an AI. I'm definitely up for a part two whenever you are.
Sounds great. We'll end it there, and I look forward to chatting again. Goodbye.
Oh, all right. Have a good one.